Good evening. Welcome to my channel called Silver Slumbers. I'm going to help you get those soothing Z's that you deserve. If you are enjoying what you are hearing, down below in the description box, if you'd like to buy me a coffee, it would be really appreciated, as it does help me the channel out. I thank you in advance. In today's video, I'm going to be reading True Home Invasion Stories, Volume 1. So sit back, relax, and close those eyes. But be careful. Don't get lost in the dark. Warning. These stories contain graphic content. Viewer discretion is advised. So, to start off, I'm a transgender woman. I'm single and I make my status as trans very clear on my dating profiles. Except plenty of fish. They consider that to be talking about sex, and they will straight up ban you. So I state instead that I'm a huge proponent of trans rights. So this guy messaged me. He lives about an hour away. Kind of cute in a mild, creepy way. Like something seems a little bit off about him. But people can't help on how they look. So I give him a chance. Just like how I would want. I discover he's a smoker. But he says he's trying really hard to quit. And only does it when he's really stressed out and upset. We have a nice conversation. And finally, he asks for my number. And without thinking about it, I give him the number. But tell him I'm getting ready for my evening class, so I'll be slow to respond. A few minutes go by, and I get, "Hi, it's username from POF, plenty of fish." Now, usually I send standard quick messages like, "Hi, it's Allie. So just to be clear, since my profile might be a little vague, I'm a transgender woman, so I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, so if you're not interested, I completely understand." About 20% of the time, the guy isn't interested and gets rude and needs to be blocked. And the other 80% is split between immediate inappropriate questions and crotch pics, casual acceptances, or dead silence. But like I said, I was getting ready to go to class, so I haven't sent the message yet. A few minutes go by, and I'm about to text him my standard when I get another text. He said, "Who the F is full dead name? Why is he paying our cell phone bill?" Me, "Where did you even get that name?" He responded, "Answer the question. Who is he?" I'm honestly stunned at this point, and I realize he must have paid of one of those shitty websites that offer personal info for a fee. Well, if you must know, I'm transgender, and that used to be my name. I was about to tell you when you pull that stunt. Please, do us both a favor and just lose my number. That's incredibly invasive, and I don't want to talk to you anymore. He responded, "Do you still live at my address at the time? In hometown. I'm coming to see you, so we can talk about this in person." I responded back with a lie. "No, I moved a few months ago, and I'm getting ready to head out like I said. You need to leave me alone. Don't contact me again." He responded back, "Since you have something to hide, I'm going to run a full background check on you. You lied to me, and I don't appreciate that." I responded, "I'm sending these screenshots of this conversation, your profile picture, and your photos to my two best friends who work in law enforcement in your town, and my ex-boyfriend, who I'm still on good terms with, who works for the local sheriff's office. Don't text me again." I didn't hear anything else from him for a few weeks. I made sure my doors and windows were locked, and the aforementioned friends and ex would check up on me from time to time. Eventually, it became one of those weird things that make you laugh uneasily. Then one day, I thought I saw him at my local grocery store. Same dark hair, thick glasses, frames, and just creepy guy, staring at me, watching me as I shop. I texted my ex about it, and as he upswings on things, my ex and I got back together in a casual sort of way. And he stayed a few nights, few times, a month and off and on. One night, when I was home alone though, I just kept getting this weird feeling and smelling smoke. I live in a little apartment complex There were 3 separate apartments that shared walls, but no plumbing or air ducts. I don't smoke, and I'm very sensitive to the smell thanks to my asthma. The apartment had a wall unit AC, so I turned it off. It was apparently pulling air in from a neighbor's guest who must have been chain smoking, I thought. I had an ASL video due the next morning, so I was up all night practicing and recording the video, signing the same story over and over again until it was almost a dance rather than a narration. A couple of times I had to reset the video because my cat was going nuts. Finally, around 7 in the morning, I had the video finished and sent in, and I was ready to go to bed. So I double checked all the doors and windows. They were all locked. I set the alarm and went to sleep. I woke up and got ready for school. I was running a bit late and had to hurry at the door, but I noticed something weird, but didn't have the time to stop and register it. Classes went smoothly. I got an A on my ASL video, and I stopped for groceries on my way home from class. As I got home, I saw what has been bugging me. Each apartment had a small garden on each side of the porch. Mine was nothing but gravel and pavers the previous tenant had put in, but it was tidy, except for a pile of cigarette butts that looked like someone had dumped their card trays into my garden. There was no other trash, just that pile right in front of my bedroom window. I don't think anything about it at first, and just get a broom and dustpan and swept it all up. As I'm doing it, my neighbor, an old man, comes out and asks if my boyfriend ever got a hold of me. I asked him what he means. He tells me there's a young man waiting for me on my front porch off and on for a few hours last night, that he's seen the guy around before and thought he was my boyfriend. I asked what he looked like. Dark hair, thick glasses, chain, smoking. I text the on and off again ex. Cops take statements and I give them the screenshots. I moved out of state a few weeks later for unrelated reasons and have legally changed my name since with closed records. I don't give guys my phone number anymore. Ladies and my fellow queer family, use the texting app until you get to know someone, because for like $5, creeps can get everything from you by just using your phone number. This incident happened about 5 years ago. This is a story that I never really tell anyone because most people are either uncomfortable hearing it or make well-meaning comments about what I should have done in the situation without really understanding how difficult your mind works when you're experiencing absolute panic. But you guys seem to get it, so here's my story. I was living in a relatively nice apartment in downtown Memphis, working as a ophthalmic technician. Unrelative, but I help my doctor help patients with their eye diseases. Anyway, I arrive home from work at my usual time, around 4:30 p.m. I set my phone, wallet, and keys on the kitchen island. Hear my heavy metal front door swing shut loudly behind me. I began taking care of some errands around the house. Having grown up in a small town, it was a habit for me to not lock my door during the day, especially when I knew my husband would be home soon anyway. I've never forget to lock my door once in the 5 years since this day. I walked through my bathroom and into my large walk-in closet and began hanging up the laundry that I started earlier in the day before. My front door opened and I smiled with surprise. My husband was home a little early and I called happily out to him. "I'm in here, my love." I was met with silence and slowly began to feel that sinking feeling of something is wrong crawl up my spine. I tried to shake it off, thinking my husband simply hadn't heard me, and walked into the living room kitchen area. Standing on the other side of the kitchen island was a complete stranger. He was a male, older than me. I would estimate about 50s, but it's hard for me to recall exact facial features and details at the moment. And he was just standing there, staring at me. No ski mask, no weapon, just watching me. I wonder if he just walked into the wrong apartment and he was about to apologize and leave. But as he just continued to stare, I realized that I need to do something other than just get taken advantage by this stranger in my home. I stood taller, puffed up my chest, in an attempt to look more threatening, which is hard to do as a small female. I used a loud, clear voice, telling him to get out of my apartment, and he had no business of being here. He completely ignored me like I hadn't spoken. Then he began to pick up my things, my cell phone, my keys, my wallet. He picked them up methodically and put them in his own pockets. That's when it truly hit me that this person was dangerous. I was naive enough to believe that this was all a mistake until that moment. I darted forward towards the only other device I had that would allow me to get help, my computer. I had to take a few steps closer to the intruder in order to reach it, but still had about 12-15 feet between us, so I knew I can grab it and run before he would reach me. As I picked it up and turned to run, I saw him start to move after me, and I sprinted back towards the bathroom because it was the only place I can go and put two locked doors between us, my bathroom door and the closet door. I slammed and locked the first door, and within seconds, I could hear him messing with it, trying to open it. I ran into the closet and locked that door too, opening my computer and getting on Facebook Messenger to contact my husband. I sent message after message, pleading with him to call 911 and tell them there was an intruder in the apartment. He got the messages within minutes and reassured me that he had a dispatcher on the phone and was leaving work himself to try to get to me if he could. I waited and waited. The bathroom door opened. The intruder came inside. He moved to the closet door and started trying to break the door down too. Here's the part where people usually start to give me advice on how I should have acted, but all I can tell you was that I was frozen with fear, with shock. I don't know, but I didn't scream or cry or search for a weapon in the dark closet. I didn't brace the door or try to keep it closed. I just kneeled in my closet and waited to die because I just knew that was what's going to happen. People like to tell me that I live in an apartment. Surely if I had screamed, someone would have heard to help. Surely there was something heavy enough in my closet to use to defend myself. Hell, even the laptop would have hurt if I swung it at someone. Why didn't I do anything? I don't really have an answer for that, but the closet door miraculously held. I heard frustrated footsteps go back out into the living area of my apartment. I heard things break, bottles shattering, my drawers and fridge and cabinets being slung open. As things were being torn out of them, I continued to sit in that closet, silently crying, wanting to leave but feeling that death was inevitable. I feel awful about my selfishness in that moment, but I messaged my mom, who lived about 15 hours drive away, and tell her what was happening. I desperately wanted comfort and to tell her how much I love her. I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine the fear and helplessness I put her through, knowing her daughter was in danger and there was nothing she could do to help. She messaged me constantly, begging me to keep replying. I told her as long as I could, but I also told her to tell my brothers that I love them, to help my husband through whatever happened next if it ended badly for me. The intruder started messing with the closet door again, mumbling disjointed words that I really couldn't distinguish. I remember hoping that the police would get to my apartment before my husband, that he would be the one to find me in whatever state that the intruder left me in. The front door opened again, and it was my husband, shouting for me. The intruder walked towards the living room kitchen area again, where my front door was located, and I opened the door and darted from the closet to find my husband on the ground with them, pinning him down. The man kept mumbling and at times yelling, but never really put much of resistance. This entire part is a blur for me. I remember feeling like the room was spinning, filling with fear, mostly for my husband at this point. Eventually, the police found the apartment. It took them about 25 minutes to arrive, which still blows my mind. I know time seems to move slowly during scary situations, so I thought it was just less than that. But from the time my husband dialed 911 to the time officers arrived, it was 25 excruciating minutes. This isn't an intent to bash him in any way. It just always seems like this was an unusually long response for a home invasion. They got all my things back from the man and took him out of my apartment. I numbly went through the process of filing a police report and telling them what happened. One of the officers commented that I should have really kept my door locked at all times. I remember feeling like he was being insensitive at the time, or blaming me for what happened. but later recognized his words coming from experience. I'm sure he's seen the situation end differently for other women. Within 30 minutes, the scariest incident of my life was over. I've carried the fear, the violation, the anxiety of having someone intrude my space for years. If it happened to me once, it can happen again. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Tell me, what do you think about this story? Tell me in the comments. A few years ago, my husband and I remodeled our house. I had purchased my grandparents' old home after they both passed away, so I wanted to keep it updated. We had gutted the living room and replaced the drywall. I had been sanding drywall mud off all evening, so after my husband left for work, he always works third shifts, I called it a day. I had all the doors and windows open, letting fresh air in and drywall mud dust out. It was just me and my son, who was 8 at the time. I had just gotten out of the shower, and when I heard a knock at the screen door, it scared me. It was 11 p.m. at night, and our home was in the country. Our neighbors weren't even at screaming distance. There was a mobile home park about 1.5 miles down the road, but we never heard anyone show up that late. There was a young girl at the door. She couldn't have been more than 20. She was wearing shorts and a tank top. She asked to use her phone. She said someone was trying to kill her. I wouldn't let her in. I asked her if she wanted me to call the sheriff. She quickly said no. She just wanted to call someone to come get her. I noticed that she was holding the cell phone. She told me that her battery was dead. I had 2 German shepherds staying on both sides of me. I told her she could use my phone, but she couldn't come in because my dogs were trained tag dogs. We can't let anyone in that doesn't know us or know them. She looked freaked out. When I handed her our landline, that's when I saw it. She had track marks up and down her arm. I think she was shooting up meth or whatever. She called her ride, and not even 2 minutes later, I see a car come down the road. It was her ride. He was on a dead-end street. As soon as they left, I closed and locked everything. I called my husband, my ex-husband, asked if I was even overreacting before calling my husband at work and the sheriff. I have never had anything like that happen before or since. I think they saw the house. It was isolated and had an exterior decor of what an old person's home would look like, and thought it would be an easy target to rob. Thank God I had my dogs, and I'm glad we didn't get to meet whoever was picking her up in that car. This is the scariest thing that has ever happened to me. And what makes it worse is that had things gone down differently, I might not be here to tell you the story. Okay, first, I am a girl about 5'7", and I weigh about 130 pounds. This happened to me about 3 years ago when I was in my early 20s and still a student, living in a very safe area. Growing up, I had loved learning martial arts. I've been growing up in a small rural area. I take what I could. Karate, fine. Judo, sure. Kung Fu, why not? Taekwondo, dude, sign me up. I love martial arts. I still do, because they help me discipline my body and mind, and I grow my confidence. It had been a few years since I moved out of my country's capital to study, and I have kind of fallen off the martial arts wagon at that point, with college taking up most of my time. I should also mention at the time, I lived with my younger brother and our cat. We live on the second floor. The second floor for all my American people, right next to the military camp, in a patch of forest which leads to a creek. On our back balcony, there was a circular metal ladder that would lead up to our balcony and the kitchen door, which of course, we always kept under lock and key, except for when the cat wanted to go out. When we unlocked the door, and he would go down the outdoor metal stairs to find his cat friends and play. I commute to my college every day by walking 30 minutes to the bus stop then ride in the bus for an hour, and then walk another 10 minutes until I make it to campus. And when it was time to go home, I had to do the same thing all over again. So, as you can imagine, it was a very tiring thing to do. I would be out of the house every day from 10 in the morning and almost 10 at night. So when I come home, I'd be tired. I don't believe in premonitions much, but I do believe in instinct. And for a while, I feel like something was up with a patch of forest behind my apartment. I don't know. I felt like I was being watched. Maybe it was the blackness of the patch of forest that made me feel uneasy, but there wasn't a single light there. The outdoor ladder looked like it descended into the abyss. You couldn't take the 3 steps into the patch of forest. You'd be completely covered in darkness. It made me feel weird because even though I couldn't see anything, I knew that something was up. I had no proof, but I knew it. I was in class one Wednesday afternoon with my best friend at the time, and a professor came in to pitch an internship to us. Internships aren't really well known in my country, so professors actually had to argue their case about why as students could benefit from this. My friend, I'll call her Kay, was very interested, but when the professor listed off the requirements, she realized she couldn't apply as her GPA wasn't high enough. This led to Kay having a crying fit after the class was over, which led to a panic attack. And it got so bad that she called her boyfriend to come pick her up from campus. And since I didn't want to leave her alone, I stayed with her until her boyfriend showed up and got in his car with her. The conversation in the car was basically me and her boyfriend trying to console her and help her cheer up. I asked her if she'd like me to go over to her place so we could all hang out, but she said that she was okay and didn't want to put me through the hassle of commuting home the next day. She lives a full hour away by car, so 2 hours away by public transport. So it was decided they would drop me off at my house and they would go to theirs. We get to my house around 7 p.m., a full 3 hours before I normally come home. I hug her and tell her to text me if she ever needs anything. I thank her boyfriend and get out of the car. I'm just glad I'll be home early for a change. I went through the main entrance, climbed up the stairs to the first floor, and put my key in the lock. I opened the door and called out my brother's name like I always did, and got no response. The house was dark except for one light in the room, where the front door opened into, and eerily quiet. I felt my stomach tie into a knot, because even if I can't hear anything, I could feel that someone was there. And when my instincts talks, I listen. I turned right into the hallway that leads into our rooms, and I saw my brother's door slam shut hard. As soon as I got in the hallway, my brother's room is on the end of the hallway on the left, facing my own room, which is on the right of the hallway. My first thought was that my brother had taken a shower and forgotten to get a towel, so he had to run from the bathroom, which is right next to my room. But then I heard muffled whispers coming from his room. It sounded hushed and pressing. I still had no reason to be afraid, but I was on high alert, because I thought my brother and his friends were planning on jumping out of his room to scare me, and I wasn't about to let them get the satisfaction. So I inched down the short hallway through the darkness, and before I knock on my brother's door, I take a look at my room. It's an effing mess. My mattress was off my bed. My clothes and books were all over the floor. My jewelry box was empty and thrown on my bed. All in all, it looked like a tornado had gone through here, and the hushed whispers in the next room sounded extremely pressing and obnoxious now that I was close, because though I had tried to tiptoe as silently as possible, my steps had been audible. I realized what was happening, and I went ballistic at that moment. I effing lost it. My fight or flight instinct kicked in, and it kicked in fight into maximum overdrive. The words, danger, thieves, fight, hit me like a truck, and I threw my whole weight on my brother's door, busting the door down so fiercely you'd think it owed me money. No one was in the room, but it was also an effing mess, and I knew what I heard. So I ran to the balcony door. I ripped the curtain out of my way and went through the open door balcony, just in time to catch one of the thieves right after he jumped off the balcony ledge. Looking back on it, he looked like a normal guy. Black hair, normal height, athletic build, big earring on his left ear. But at the time, he looked like an effing monster to me. A vile, putrid, home-invading piece of crap thief monster. I started screaming unintelligible things as I saw him stumbling around, obviously having his legs hurt. Before he got back on his feet and ran away, they were gone. I was safe. But then it hit me. Where is my effing laptop? I ran to my room and tore the place apart looking for my laptop. It was gone. I started screaming and crying. The unfairness, audacity, and the cowardice hit me like a steel toe to the stomach. I screamed and cried like I was in a Goethean tragedy. I am not rich by any means, and neither is my family. I had an old laptop, which was probably worth pennies secondhand. But I needed that laptop for my schoolwork, and without it, I couldn't finish my semester. Not to mention that I don't have many real-life friends, and the majority of my friends at the time were online. So if I lost my laptop, I lost them. My laptop was lost, and so was I. I felt violated, dirty, and less than. I was afraid I'd throw up or pass out or both. I was taking such rapids and deep panic breaths that my vision began to blur. In the most panic and grief-stricken state I have ever been in my life, tears streaming down my face. I called my mother and told her what happened, and she told me to call the police. It almost took me a full minute on my phone with the operator telling her again and again where I lived, who I was, and what had happened before she understood, and said she'll send someone over. A few days later, I was talking with my mom about the incident, and she told me something that hit me hard. I come from a pretty much trilingual household, and she told me that when I called her that night, she couldn't make out what language I was speaking because I had been in such a panic. Makes sense why I had to repeat myself over and over to the operator. I ran around through the house like a lunatic, checking every door, every lock in a frenzy, until I got to my kitchen and saw that the window had been broken in. Without thinking, I slammed it shut. Stupid, I know, but I was beside myself. I wasn't thinking straight. My brother came home a few minutes later, and when he came in, he saw me panicked, crying my eyes out, and speaking mostly unintelligible. He came to the bedrooms and saw the damage. He told me to go sit in the living room and calm down. I did as he said and tried to calm down, but I jumped at every sound and started crying worse. My brother called me over to my room and showed me a pillowcase full of something. And when we looked inside, we found both of our laptops, all of my jewelry, fake, all of it, my phone, and some other stuff. They had been there right in front of me the whole time, but I was so messed up that they didn't even register. The police eventually came over an hour later and did absolutely nothing. So my brother and I took it all to the police station and filed a police report of the incident. And since I had about half of one of the culprit's faces, they asked me to come for identification. They even sent someone over to dust off the prints. Nothing ever came to it. The police said that since they didn't even have backpacks to put loot in and to resort to using one of our pillowcases, they were almost 100% junkies. We had the outdoor metallic ladder ripped off our kitchen balcony, much to my cat's displeasure, since that's how they got in. We also installed motion detection light. For the next few months, I was constantly on edge, and every time I passed near some suspicious character who hang around near my usual bus stop, I felt a violent rage boil in me. I constantly catch myself looking for the man that I've seen, ready to beat him with every inch of his life. But I never saw him, or never heard this creepy whisper partner again. And my brother and I moved away from that apartment a few months later, because I never felt comfortable in that apartment again. I picked up kickboxing, and because it made me stronger, it has made me feel safer, and I always carry a knife with me now. I still think back on the encounter and realize how effing stupid I was. What creeps me out the most is knowing that night, there had been nothing but a thin plywood separating two of me with two potentially dangerous men. Even though I know that me bursting into my brother's room like a lunatic is what scared him off because of how stupidly fearless I was, I also realized how bad it could have gone. They could have had guns, they could have had knives, they could have had pepper spray or a chain or whatever. And there were two of them and only one of me. And if they ganged up on me, even with the adrenaline having turned me into a doom guy, I don't know how much of a chance I realistically stood against two men, high on whatever they were on, and desperate enough to break into an apartment and stuff loot into a pillowcase. Had they been willing to put up a fight, this probably would have ended very badly for me. What I do know is that I probably still would have burst in there like Doom Guy. So, to the creepy, cowardly bastards who dare to break into my apartment and try to rob me and my brother and end up traumatizing me so bad that I had to move. F both of you. I hope for your effing sake we never meet again, because I've been kicking the sandbag for 2 years now and picturing your face ever since, every single time. For your sake and safety, pray we never meet again. The house I grew up in was very large, with a bedroom in the front of the house by the street, and my parents all the way down the other end. The garage was next to my room, with the window looking in, and I would keep this blind up to help me wake up in the morning. My bed was against the other window, which faced the street. This story happened when I was 16 or 17, and I'm a female, and I don't have any siblings. As a teen, I tend to stay up late, cruising MySpace and chatting with my friends on MSN. One night, I was sitting in bed, doing so. It was around 4 in the morning when I heard distinctly human snoring coming from the other side of my window. I quickly ran down the other end of the house and woke my parents. Dad went to investigate and said it must have been a possum or koala, as there was nothing there. I live in Australia, if that wasn't obvious. The next night, it's a similar thing for me. Stayed up late, except this time, I turned off all of my lights and was just laying in bed listening to music, very softly. About an hour later, I heard a bang right outside my bedroom window. Now, after the night before, Dad was grumpy enough at me for waking him. I lay there for a second longer, contemplating what to do, as I knew he'd be angry to be woken a second night in a row. I said F it, and legged down to my parents' room. Dad wasn't having a bar of it at this time, so Mom told me she walked me to my room. Upon getting to my room, the light in the garage was now on. Remember, I keep this blind up, and I swore to my mom that it was off before. I went in to get my dad to investigate and found the roller door up. As he walks towards it, it started closing. He thought the electricals must have been glitching, so it was a bit stormy, and we all went back to bed. The next morning, Mom woke me up to apologize. Someone had smashed our car window open and stolen the roller door remote. We never kept the house door on the other side of the roller door locked, and they shut the roller on Dad so they can get away. I always think about, had I stayed in my room any longer and heard the doors going up and seen the person walk past my window, what I would have done, as there was no way I'd be able to get my parents' room in time. To break in the middle of the night, knowing full well that everyone was home, still gives me chills over what happened. My parents went away for the weekend, leaving me on my own. I slept the next few nights in their room with the locked door, my hockey stick, and every knife in the house, and the house phone. Not a lot of sleeping happened, though. So, when I first went out on my own, because independent of an abusive family, and got my first Section 8 apartment, I could not afford a phone. I was broke. The tenant who lived there before me was an SEX worker. I liked to be in my living room with my Mac desktop, and one night at 2 in the morning, I was drinking cherry tea and doing just that. Someone knocked at the door. I went to the door, made sure it was locked. I come from a privileged upbringing. Despite abuse, and locking door wasn't important in my neighborhood. It was some guy. I doubly made sure it was locked and closed the curtains, but the guy kept trying to get in. He was not alone. There were two other people involved. It was 2 a.m, and I was absolutely alone. So, for the next 2 hours, I didn't move into my bathroom because I wanted to stay connected to possible help. I frantically messaged anyone that I knew. Finally, a friend in Washington State asked if I wanted them to call the cops for me. That was in 5 a.m. They did, and by the time the cops finally came, someone had kicked in my bedroom window, and my kitty had gotten out. He was climbing in at that point, so it would have been a complete home invasion if I never frantically messaged my friends. The cops never followed up with me, which I find weird. I was obviously shaken up, so I just try to move past it because it's not like a complete home invasion, just a half one. Some backstory. I'm 17 years old, about to be a senior in high school, and work as a vet clinic as a kennel worker for 2 years. My mom worked there, so that's how I was able to start working there before I was 16. So it's common for people to ask me to wash their pets or help them with things that are pet related. That's how I ended up staying at one of my teacher's house for the past few days. On one Monday morning, I went over to their house and started settling in. I should mention that they just moved in a week ago, so the house is still fairly empty-ish, and there are quite a few boxes left. I spent the day hanging out with the dogs, a younger dog named Milo and an older dog named Chili, until my mom had me go home for dinner. I was gone for a couple hours and went back when the sun was just set. When I left the house, I had turned off all the lights. However, when I got back into the house, the downstairs bathroom light and front light were on, which unsettled me a little bit, but I just assumed one of their neighbors' friends had stopped by and come in. To the house to the left under the doormat to the back door, which is something only me and a few other friends were told about. I ignored it and just got ready for bed. I decided to sleep in the living room because it's the coldest in the house. So I closed the doors, which connect to the living room, to the dining room, and sunroom. The doors to these are all glass, which is going to be important for later on. The dog settled down, and I started to as well. Eventually, I fell asleep and was woken up a few hours later to the dogs both up and growling at the doors, which scared me because in the years I've known these dogs, I've never heard them growl, but I figure it was just them being anxious being in a new house with new smells and new sounds, so I brushed it off and eventually went to sleep. Tuesday night was uneventful. The dog slept through the whole night, and so did I. Wednesday night was things that went wrong though. I got back to the house a little after 8, after having been gone for work for a few hours, and was greeted at the door by the dogs. This was odd to me because as I had put them in the sunroom before I left, so they should have been there still. The door leading to the sunroom from the living room had been open, and the ceiling fans were previously on have now been turned off. I'm a pretty paranoid person when it comes to being home alone, so I immediately just wanted to leave. But I had promised my teacher I would sleep there with the dogs at night to watch the house. So I just closed the doors and locked down the house. So I can start getting ready for bed. As I lay there on the couch, Milo kept pacing up the stairs. Something I quickly noticed. What worries me is when he stops and stands at the base of the stairs and starts growling and barking up the stairs. Again, these dogs rarely growled, so I started freaking out a bit when he starts doing this. I tried calling him over to me, but he just continued to growl. Eventually, he did come over to me and sat with me on the couch. but he continued to stare up the stairs. I started trying to relax again and turn off the lamp next to me and lay down. The way I was positioned, I could see through the dining room into the sunroom. Their sunroom is all windows and no curtains. Maybe all sunrooms are like this, I wouldn't know. And the light from the street was shining into the room, lighting it up like the slightest bit. I started to doze off when I noticed that I couldn't see any light coming from the street anymore. And this is when the dogs started going nuts again. Both of them got up and started growling. Milo went over to the stairs while Chili stayed at the door, separating the living room from the dining room. I was freaking out, but didn't see any movement in the sunroom, so instead of calling the cops or anything, I called my mom, who refused to come to the house to get me. Yeah, thanks, Mom. So I called my grandpa and had him stay with the phone with me while I get my shoes and bolted. I went on the back so I can grab the key off the counter on my way out, and as I got to the gate leading out to the sidewalk, I noticed it was a bit open. I didn't even bother thinking about why it was open and just ran. The way that I went, there's a junior high school that separates the street where my teacher lives on, Street A, and the street that I live in, Street B, which is 2 streets down from the junior high. A lot of people cut through there through the parking lot which leads to Street A, so I decided to go to that route. Here's what gets creepier for me. As I was passing the actual school itself, I noticed that one of the side doors to the school was open, and the darkness of the hallway seems like it was pouring out of the door. Something straight out of a horror movie, which is why it scared me more than the incident in the house did. I started running faster and faster and eventually made it home. Now I'm in my room with my dog, typing this out, still freaking out a bit. Thank you for reading this. I'm sorry it was so long, but I tend to ramble when I'm scared. I'm going to try to get some sleep. If anyone knows how I can upload a diagram showing the house layout or anything, let me know and I can add it if it's wanting to clarify or anything. Just a quick update. Some of you in the comments were asking me, did I leave the dogs behind? So here's my response. I had to leave them because I have my own dogs at home. I'm not sure how they would have been together, and they're small dogs, so I hope that they would just hide if anything were to happen. I came back to the house earlier this morning, and the side door to the sunroom was wide open as well as the closet at the top of the stairs. I had my grandpa, with the owner's permission, check the house with me and made sure no one else was still in there. I'm really glad to say that both the dogs were just fine. I posted a picture of them on my profile if you want to check it out. I don't know how to link pictures or posts in here, so I'll just post it there. Then my teacher's older daughter gets back tonight, so she said that she'll just fill her in and they'll handle it. And that's the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed these true home invasion stories, Volume 1. If you made it this far, I want to thank you for tuning in. Please tell me in the comments which one you enjoyed the most. I want to hear your input. If you are asleep, well, maybe you can hear me in your dream world, and I'll let you listen to the rain. Enjoy the slumber world.